Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. My name is Adam Portrais, and I'm joined with a much better sounding Sean Keenan.
Heidi thinks this movie is very jingoistic.
And of course, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and happy birthday, Mr. Portrais. You got to spend it at Diagon Alley.
Indeed I did, man. It was a good one. And I'll tell people this. First of all, thanks for the people that did wish me happy birthday. That's very, very lovely. My parents kind of at the last minute, they called me up on a Thursday, and they were like, hey, so how about Friday we take off and go down to Orlando for your birthday? Just, no other family or anything. Let's just bring you on down there and all that kind of good stuff. And I was like, oh, you know what? That's pretty cool. And I really realized something. Once you get to your mid-60s, don't go with your parents to anything anymore, because they're really, I love them to death, but I think this was more or less the thing of going, you never want to go with us on vacation again, do you? And I think they're mission accomplished, because they are I love them to death, but they are insane people and the worst people to vacation with. Love them to death, never again. Not that long a trip, I won't.
Give us one story of why it was bad.
Well, both of them believe they're expert drivers. Both of them are vastly losing their abilities to drive. They're not horrible, but things are a little bit off. So I'm riding up in the passenger seat. Dad is driving and stuff, and we're going down 95. And people drive like nutbags, right? And so Dad will brake real fast, and then Mom is sleeping in the back row and then kind of falls down out of the seat and starts screaming.
Okay, you can't do that again. You cannot shove Mama Portrais in the back seat and have her do the old brake tumble.
She didn't want to sit up front. She's just like, I could sit back here and lay down and have a good old time. Flump. That's not good.
I'm picturing her like riding up in whatever the rear equivalent of the dashboard is. That little thing that used to be in like old 70s cars in the back.
It's not. Well, look, it's a Santa Fe. There's enough room for her back there. So, but it's
very roomy in the back. The Santa Fe.
She even got the little thing where you could kind of recline the seat back a little bit there. She's like, ooh, this is nice. And then after a while, it's like, it's too hot back here. I'm too cold back here. Within the span of, I kid you not, 2.5 minutes.
See, the trip was so much more fun when I was picturing it in a Miata.
Oh man, I couldn't. I mean, we're a tall people, so like mom's the shortest, and she's 5'9".
You got to put the top down, Sean.
You look like Shaq in that insurance commercial.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah.
But we welcome you. Yeah, so I did have a good birthday, and thank you to the people that wished me as such. A year older, not a year better, but we'll see what we can do. But yeah, man. And what kind of present do you give Adam on his birthday other than have the people at Patreon vote on a Patreon selected feature? And this week, out of all the things they could have chosen, they chose Conan the Barbarian from, actually, believe it or not, my year of birth, 1982. And
what a year, man! And
yeah, man, and I think we'll talk about that era when all this stuff comes up as well, because maybe we'll have some stuff to say. But that's what we'll be voting on. If you too would like to vote, you can go down to patreon.com/HMP. Links are in the show notes for you, if you're so inclined. And here's the cool part: next month kicks off Patreon Appreciation Month here. We got 5 weeks. One of those weeks is going to be, just like this show, a Patreon selected program. But one of them, yes, one of them will be chosen. One of the movies in the week will be chosen by one of you. So even if you're donated at $1 all the way on up, you will be put into a drawing to actually pick the movie that we review that week.
Now, theoretically speaking, if Micah Hunter was picked, what do you think it would be his movie?
He's talked to me about a couple things. I can't remember off the top of my head.
He was the one who was really pulling for Zorro the Gay Blade this go around.
Yeah, he was actually he actually even made a lot of displeasure known to the people on Patreon, going, I'm ashamed of you people for not actually picking Zorro the Gay Blade. So if he wins, who knows? But there's a large group, there's a decent sized group of people there. It could always be bigger. Patreon.com/HMP. So you'll have that, and every single week we are going to pick a winner, and they're going to get a little something. One of them obviously will be that review that we'll be doing on the show. We may have a t-shirt. We may have a couple of other different prizes as well. And again, that's for any level, man. And if you go up to our most popular level, which is $5, you get the pre-show, you get the post-show. And we had for those of you that are on Patreon, you already know this, but for those of you that don't, you missed out on a heck of an early pre-show here. We had a good old-fashioned time here. And, for $1.25 a month or $1.25 a week, how can you possibly go wrong? And the chance to get more stuff, too. That's what's even cooler.
Hey, we discussed donkeys and Jesse Ventura.
That's all you got to know, dude. If that does not intrigue you enough, and the cool thing is you don't have to go to their website and everything and play it out that way. You get a customized RSS feed. You put that right in your, podcatcher device of sorts, whatever phone or anything else that you got. It feeds it automatically in there. You don't got to do nothing, man. And you help this show get along. So why what's wrong with you? Why aren't you on it right now? Do it as a birthday present to me. Patreon.com/HMP. All right, so before we do that, we've got an email, gentlemen. And when we have an email, what do? That's right, we play our lovely, lovely email theme song. Let's go ahead and play that now.
Bale's here.
All right. Now, this...
I have new joy in that, knowing just how much you love that sound drop.
It's so good. I love it.
I know how much joy it brings you, and it makes me joyful knowing you probably smile every time you hear it, and I love it.
There's a little head bob that goes along with it. It's not bad. The funny part is like, for those of you who don't know, we came up with that on the Preacher podcast, and we just
coming soon, by the way.
Yes, coming soon again. But Sean's just like, we should have sort of this here, and he said mail's here. He didn't know we were doing this, and I was just like, well, maybe somebody will send us a thing, a little jingle or something that we can do. No one really sent us anything, so I was like, well, if no one's going to do it, I'm going to take it upon myself to do it. And I kept thinking, scratching my brain, and when I came up with it, I was just like, I am a genius, and then threw it together, and I'm still patting myself on the back to this very day. So, listen, I'm not one to sit here and say that I don't do these things. I do them very often. Now, the email that we got this week is the same person that emailed us last week. Now, we've been on quite the tumultuous adventure with this gentleman, and he's written, I think this is his best email yet. Hey guys, it was so cool to hear my email read on the Iron Fist Part 2 episode. I'd like to apologize for my early emails. I was treating this email process like a 14-year-old goth who treats comments on their WWE Facebook post, which makes a lot of sense. Now, so Matt is the author of this. Matt wrote us a lot of like sorted emails early on in his HMP tenure, and We had some back and forths. Most of them didn't hit the show because they weren't, I wouldn't call them, the best of complaints. It was just more screaming at us for no real reason. And we were like, hey, dude, these are just opinions. If you don't like them, that's cool. We all don't agree on everything. And he kept doing it, but I think he's come around. He continues. This show makes me, all caps here, so happy. I don't have a lot of friends down here, and all my really nerdy buds are up in Georgia. So hearing you read my email on a previous show gave me that quote-unquote nerd chat fix. Adam, you're a great host. Any advice for starting your own podcast? I'm gonna hit that in just a moment. Sean, what shoe size? Because I'd love to buy you a Back to the Future Adidas for your collection.
Those aren't Adidas, but that would be awesome.
I think those are
14 and a half. That's Sean's size.
13s, thank you.
This is so bad because I was just like, I think Sean and I have the same shoe size. I probably could borrow a couple Sean shoes, like he'd let me. All right, and Bruce,
never,
I know,
ever,
and you'd be smart for that too. You'd be very smart because
he doesn't wear socks, Sean. He never wears socks.
But there's foot funk. There's foot funk, Adam. Why don't you ever wear socks?
I do. Listen, honestly, that from Bruce is a joke. The idea, honest to God, of not wearing socks with shoes disgusts me to no end.
I saw him wear socks at the beach with his sandals one time.
Yeah, I go Ethan Klein all over that boy. I know what I'm doing. Bruce, mid-calf, exactly. Bruce, you, sir, have the comic book knowledge I could only aspire to attain. I recently made my wife listen to your Iron Fist episode of Heroes and Villains, woo woo, so she would know that character is way cooler than that crappy Netflix show would have you believe, LOL. You guys helped me through the day at work, so and I can't thank you enough. Doctor Strange rocks, and Eva Mendes is still weird looking. Love the show. Never stop, Matt from Florida. Like I said, Matt, it's been a tumultuous time with you, buddy, but I'm glad the pendulum has swung the other way, and you are on Team HMP now. We accept you with open arms and, a loving embrace. But
yeah, keep writing in, Matt. Thank you very much.
We appreciate that. Now, I will say this. So his thing was, and I won't go too awful long, but his thing was how would I what would be my advice for starting a podcast? Biggest thing for me that I tell anybody is, number one, do something that you love. If you don't absolutely love the topic that you're doing, don't do it, because you'll get into it and then you will hate doing it every single week if it's not something you are absolutely 110% passionate about. Number two, the more niche you can make it, the better. If you were absolutely Smurf, tastic over here, do a whole thing on the Smurfs, man, because there's somebody out there that wants to listen to that, right? But, you can be general, but you have to have some sort of, standpoint to go from. Make it either be A, you're the complete and utter expert in that, or B, you're exploring it for the first time and you want others to go on that journey with you. But practice. Don't think you're going to get really good at first. Don't think you're going to get a ton of listeners at first. But, it's a slow journey upwards. But if you do it and you do it well, you get rewarded from it. I think all three of us can, stand by that statement, having done all of our shows over the years.
From very personal experience, I can say, don't worry, be shameless. Don't be afraid to be absolutely horrible in the beginning, because Adam can tell you I wasn't afraid of that. Woo! And I am whatever I am now because I was terrible for a while.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Bruce would not have anyone here go back and listen to his things voluntarily. So, but you know what? It made him better, because he went through and he realized what works. He realized what didn't work. That's all this is a bunch of trial and error. Find out what you like, make it happen.
Now he's forged like steel.
He is. The man comes through and he delivers every single week, and it's
you can drop him like a paratrooper into any podcast, anything, anywhere, and he will perform. He will outperform. I challenge you to show me a podcaster more talented than Bruce Leslie. I defy you. I defy you.
Give it a shot. You can't.
Keep going.
He does. He has guested on many a podcast and stuff, and you're right. He does deliver.
Because he's awesome. That's why people have him on, because Bruce Leslie is awesome. I'm kind of making a joke, but I mean it.
Yeah.
There is no better podcaster in the world than Bruce Leslie.
He's a mythical man, that Bruce Leslie is. All right. So Matt, again, thank you for your email there. We really appreciate that. And if you'd like to email us, you could do that by emailing us at heromoviepodcast@gmail.com. We always appreciate when everyone does that, and, helps the show get along here. Let's close up the mailbag.
Bale's here.
All right, kids, that is, it's time. It's time to sit back and enjoy the trailer that is Conan the Barbarian, if it wants to play.
It was a time not unlike our own, when brutal danger was a part of life. It was in this time that young Conan was orphaned at the hand of Thulsa Doom. And so it became a time for vengeance. But only after his body and his will were shaped by slavery on the wheel of pain could Conan begin his search. First, he had to learn the daring of the thief, the cunning of the fugitive, the bravery of the warrior, the warmth of friendship, the passion of love, and the wisdom of one who has suffered. Only then would Conan understand that revenge is the answer to the riddle of steel. Conan the Barbarian, a film by John Milius.
All right, everybody, that was a trailer for Conan the Barbarian, our Patreon supporter movie of the week. This is directed by John Milius, written by John Milius and Oliver Stone. This is starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, James Earl Jones, Max von Sydow, and Sandal Bergman, amongst many others. And my guess is some of our crew out there may not realize that Conan has a history in comic books. And who do we go for that history lesson but our own Bruce Leslie? Bruce, what do you got for
Hold
our
on.
Huh?
Bruce, you can decide if you want this or not, but I have a really good idea for like a stinger before you actually get to the comic book connection. I just thought of it.
Lay it on me.
You decide if you want it or not, all right? So segment this off, Adam, so that you know where this is. Okay, ready?
All right.
It's time for Bruce's comic book connection.
Oh, man, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's easy.
All right. Good. Okay. Very good. Bruce, I don't know how to follow that up, but go.
Okay, man. Well, first off, I want to say that a lot of this came from a really good article on the Bronze Age of comics on tvtropes.com. I want to give them proper credit. But the Bronze Age of comic books was a much-needed change in the sequential art medium. Now, the Silver Age of comic books was known for goofy, lighthearted, and rather fantastic plots with black and white morality and a general absence of mature themes. In other words, unsophisticated storytelling that really hindered the art form. Now, don't get me wrong, multicolored kryptonite, dog sidekicks, and telepathic gorillas were all great, but something was missing. Now, as the 60s drew to a close and 1970 arrived, comics were swept up in the same social revolution fervor and post-Vietnam, post-Watergate disillusionment as the rest of America. Now, the comics code gradually loosened and it let morally ambiguous stories appear more often, and comics flourished with a gritty realism not seen since the Golden Age. The Bronze Age was a renaissance of sorts. Now, character conflict as a plot device became the rule. Horror comics reappeared on the shelves. Some comics were dispensed without the stamp of the Comics Code. Now, with the looser constraints of the revision that happened in 1971 to the Comics Code, comics were finally free to address those mature issues that had been missing for oh so long. Creators were eager to prove to skeptical audiences that despite the Silver Age silliness that had become synonymous with the medium, comics could tell stories that were compelling to older readers. Now, the Bronze Age is known for the first attempts to bring realism and adult issues to comic books. Also, non-white superheroes finally started to appear during the Bronze Age. Though granted, they were somewhat exploitative. People that were big, tough, scary black men with afros and jive turkey dialogue. Luke Cage, I'm talking about you, of course. Asian martial artists who spouted a bunch of Confucianistic nonsense and other things like that. But there were some writers who managed to transcend these cliches and bring the hints of true diversity to the genre. We had characters in the Bronze Age that were introduced like Storm of the X-Men, Cyborg of the Teen Titans, and of course the Green Lantern John Stewart. There's also the point where Invisible Girl decided that she'd had enough of being called a girl and became Invisible Woman. Hawk Girl did the same thing and became Hawk Woman about the time she finally joined the Justice League. And then there was the X-Men, who had been around for a long time but relatively unsuccessful in the Silver Age. Well, they rocketed to prominence under the writing of Chris Claremont and the art of John Byrne. Batman became more gothic in tone, though he wouldn't really fully become the Dark Knight until the birth of what I call the modern age. The Bronze Age is also when story arcs first appeared, eschewing the self-contained single-issue stories for more ambitious mini-epics like the Dark Phoenix Saga or Days of Future Past. Heavy metal introduced North American readers to what I guess you could call the European fantasy genre, also the buxom fantasy genre for some folks. Now, sources differ on when the Bronze Age of comic books started and the Silver Age ended. Many people point to Jack Kirby defecting from Marvel to DC and creating the New Gods. Others point to the retirement of Mort Weisinger, who oversaw the silliest of the Superman stories all through the Silver Age. Or others will even point to Spider-Man number 96, which was the first comic from a major publisher to be printed without the Comics Code stamp. Now, for me, I point to a single issue published by Marvel in 1970 as the birth of the Bronze Age. In 1970, Marvel came out with a different type of hero. He was Conan the Barbarian. Conan didn't just kill people. He thirsted for the blood of his enemies. He drank alcohol liberally and ran into battle clad in little more than a loincloth. Please indulge my double entendre when I say his sword was truly savage. Now, Conan is a Cimmerian, and his creator, Robert E. Howard, made no secret of the fact that Cimmerians were based on Celts. He was born on a battlefield, and by age 15, he was already a respected warrior. He was struck by wanderlust and began the adventures chronicled by Howard, encountering skulking monsters, evil wizards, tavern wenches, and beautiful princesses. He roamed throughout the Hyborian Age nations as a thief, outlaw, mercenary, and pirate. In his 40s, he seized the crown of a tyrannical king of Aquilonia, the most powerful kingdom of the Hyborian Age, having strangled the previous ruler on the steps of his throne. This guy wasn't just an anti-hero, he was downright despicable. Conan's adventures often result in him performing heroic feats, though his motivation for doing so is largely to protect his own survival or for personal gain. He was the spirit of Dungeons & Dragons before Gary Gygax or TSR were ever born. Conan has sullen, smoldering, and volcanic blue eyes and a hairy chest. Let's just say what he was, a proto-Burt Reynolds. He was the bandit and thought the mom was Smokey. No human is ever described as being stronger than Conan. In a story called A Witch Shall Be Born, Conan fights armed men until he is overwhelmed, captured, and crucified, goes a night and a day without any water, but still possesses the strength to pull the nails from his body, then hoist himself onto a horse and ride 10 miles only to get in another battle. That's the kind of toughness that can only come from a nebbish writer who lived through the Depression by writing stories about a half-naked man in magazines like Weird Tales and Fancy Pants Weekly, and I may have made that second one up. Despite the significance of his comics or the lasting legacy of his prose adventures, the thing he is most remembered for is a movie starring an oversized Austrian who would one day be the Republican governor of the most liberal state in the Union. So what do you guys say? Should we get to talking about this movie?
I think we should.
Yeah.
So how do we? We've got a beginning bit that we're going to do for Bruce from now on. Do we have something else?
Oh yeah. Here it is. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Consider yourselves connected.
Oh man. That should be in a Bud Light commercial. That's how good that is.
Bud Light, hey, they do get more of a budget during the Super Bowl than almost anyone. So that's high praise that is.
And only recently did I discover that Little Sweet was actually sort of a famous guy.
I'm not sure who that is.
That's Diet Dr. Pepper, man. I'm sorry. Diet Dr. Pepper. Little Sweet was Justin Guarini, I think.
Oh, that's the character name for the mascot for a while there. Yeah, that was weird.
I like Little Sweet. He's a homewrecker. Okay, man, let's talk about Conan the Barbarian.
I'm more of a Buddy Lee man myself.
I'm an annoyed guy, but that's just my age.
So this whole movie, man, this whole movie starts off kind of interesting to me. I'm a big fan of fantasy. I think that goes without saying. It's like stating the obvious, but
I started watching it this morning, and I think it's still going.
I've seen Conan the Barbarian, and I've seen the more recent remake, and they both don't do themselves any favor by actually starting off pretty good. And this, I'm really into the imagery of the sword being forged by the blacksmith and this whole question of the riddle of the steel or whatever. But I'm really hate loose ends and hanging threads, and I'm not convinced they ever answered what the riddle of the steel is. So they're setting me up for what could be an interesting movie here. We see Conan as a kid, we see his dad making his sword, and I did read that sword that they used as the prop sword in the movie actually cost $10,000 to make, and it was like a real hand forged steel sword.
Weta would work that up today for $1.50.
It's like it's the most used prop in this movie. It would make sense.
Well, the thing is, the expensive sword is the one his dad makes that he doesn't get back till the end. He uses another sword all through the middle.
Right.
So it's like they spent the $10,000 on the one that we only see to book in the story.
You got to get that.
Boy,
cheap
that's gonna look
sword.
real good at Planet Hollywood, hanging up over the wall.
Yeah, man. But we get to see this group of raiders ride into the Sumerian village, which it looks to me like this entire race. Robert E. Howard described this race of Sumerians. It looks like there's 7 of them. I mean, doesn't that village seem pretty sparsely populated? And apparently that's like every Sumerian alive. Like Conan's the only one who survives the raid. And I think I saw 7 people killed, 2 of them with a ridiculously oversized mallet that made me think Harley Quinn was part of the raiding party for a minute.
I was thinking straight up Gallagher. The other part that's weird is that isn't he a warrior? Isn't he from a warrior race? Like that seems like a pretty low key little village to be a warrior race.
I know, and like the backstory of Conan is that his mother was actually fighting in the heat of battle when she was 9 months pregnant. She went into labor, never stopped fighting, and the baby just kind of like fell out on the battlefield. That's the story.
Grab an axe, son. Grab an axe.
That would have been a much better place to start this movie, if you ask me.
Well, they kind of did that in the remake and everything, which is almost kind of awesome that, like, all of a sudden we get, like, an inside the womb pick and then, like, a sword or something goes through it. I was just like, wow, didn't expect that. Now, the rest of the movie after that stunk, but, that was like, whoa, you're going there.
When's the Gru movie coming out?
Man, I am dollars. I'll pay $100 to see that Gru movie in surround sound. I lost what I wanted to see there. I want to see who they cast as Gru, because it's got to be live action.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, man. I think Joe Piscopo is probably the right answer.
Dana Carvey as Gru.
John Lovitz is Gru.
Hello, everybody.
And imagine all the kids that think it's another one of those Despicable Me movies they show up to see.
That's what I was about to say. I think the Gru movie comes out this holiday, this summer.
Yeah.
Where he meets his twin or some such. I don't know anything about that.
Adam, isn't that the movie that you said that you are looking most forward to? It's Despicable Me 3 coming out.
It's odd. Dude, seriously. No, pause for just a second here, because I had the weirdest experience, right, at Universal. So my mom was tired, so she goes over and sits off in a corner doing God knows what. So me and my dad start going around to different rides and stuff. We got the fast pass, so we're going around to everything. As we get out of like the Transformers ride there, which is all right. It's not great, but it's all right. We get out of there. We're like kind of looking at the map. A parade starts, right? And there's like a Minions float and everything. And on top of the of one of the floats there is a guy in the Gru costume, right? They're dancing around. They're doing their stuff. And this guy, I swear to you, is eyeballing me. He is looking right at me, and because I'm looking at the map. I'm going, hey, what's the closest thing that we can go to next? He's looking and he's dancing, and he's looking right at me, and he starts pointing at me. He's pointing at me and giving me like a thumbs up and stuff. I'm wearing my Hawkeye shirt, right? So he's giving me like a thumbs. I think he's looking at the shirt. That's the only thing I could think of. He's giving me the thumbs up, and he's shooting at me like he's shooting me the guns, and then like kind of like does the like take a picture, the kind of like motion. And he's doing it like I'm looking around and I'm like, there's no one else that this is at. This is at me. It was the creepiest, weirdest feeling I've ever seen. I felt assaulted.
Maybe he wanted to slice off a piece of Portrais.
I don't know. I was just like, this is disturbing how this person is just like, it's a big giant mask, so you can't see anything, but he's standing on this platform that's like 8 feet in the air, just pointing at me going, yeah, buddy. I'm like, I don't know what's going on here, but I'm frightened.
Guys, give me a minute. I got to work on some slash fic real quick.
So what was your reaction? I mean, did you give it back to him, or were you like,
I was looking at, I was just going to my dad. I'm going, is this it me? Because I swear to you, there's a whole group of like kids and stuff. They're all watching the parade. This dude's eyeballing me for sure. And I'm looking at Dad. I'm just going, am I nuts? Is he doing this at me? I think he's doing this at me. And I'm like,
I'll tell you.
I gave him like a little thumbs up or something, and he like seemed to be happy about it. But I don't know what it was. It was bizarre.
The only way I know to deal with that is I just pull up my shirt and start rubbing my belly vigorously.
Yeah, and then you see someone throw up inside of a character
what a
costume.
weird defense mechanism.
I'll tell you, man, it will deter almost any assault.
You know
Those
what?
coyotes are coming right at us.
Hey, I learned it from Goonies. You do the truffle shuffle, the bullies leave you alone.
I've had second thoughts. Bye. Anyway, Guru's gonna get his own show.
I don't know what they do to slaves in the Hyborian age, but that little kid version of Conan did not have an Austrian accent.
No, he grew up a little bit different, I'd say.
Yeah, so and also, man, forget about CrossFit. Apparently, you just push a wheel around in a circle for like 13 years and you become they must feed their slaves like 15 porterhouse steaks a day, because you know that guy needs 10,000 calories of pure protein to build up that kind of bulk.
And every muscle is symmetrical and one might say Mr. Olympian-esque on
here's
just
your
a
breakfast.
dude who's a slave.
Here's your
It's
breakfast,
time to work
Conan.
on my traps now. I turn the wheel like this.
Here's your breakfast, Conan. It's another bucket of horse gonads.
Thank you. And here's the thing. Watching this whole movie, I was just like, look, dude, I'm tired of the old cliche Arnold thing. Do people just do the voice and stuff that's what would be described in closed captioning as unintelligible mumbling? He just does this stuff. As much as I wanted to try to come to the poor man's defense and go like, no, this is not a thing. I'm like, throughout this entire movie, there's all this crap going on.
His performance, the way I've described his performance in this movie, is like a hacky open mic comic doing an Arnold Schwarzenegger impersonation.
Right?
That is what Arnold does in this movie.
Absolutely. I'm just going, people, that's something that's cruel that people don't, that they just do all the time. I'm like, no, he's doing it, dude.
It came from somewhere.
Yeah.
There's a nugget of truth in every hacky statement.
As much as true.
But, man, here's something else that amazed me. And I've seen this movie a couple of times. It's not like it's been a long time since I've seen it. But every time that James Earl Jones pulls that helmet off and we see the lovely mullet locks on his head, man, I love that wig that they got for James Earl Jones in this movie.
Well, that brings me to a point here. So how many times have you guys seen this movie before?
Now, in its completion, probably 2 to 3 times, but I've seen the first half of it probably 50 times.
I could have... Go ahead.
When I was a kid, I was forbidden to watch it because it had chowder buckets on it.
Yeah.
Chowder buckets in it.
This movie is lousy with chowder buckets.
But whenever it came on HBO one summer, my cousin had it, so I'd stay the night with him on a lot of weekends, and man, we would watch Conan until we fell asleep. Which I've got more commentary on that near the end, but it's a good movie for that.
Yeah, well, boy, I learned that because I started watching it on the trip, and yeah, I rented off iTunes, and I'm like, well, I'll just be able to do this on the way home. No, sir. I had to wait till I had to be sitting upright and paying attention to things because, yeah. Which reminds me, because in that rolls in that question, I felt that I had seen this, and honestly, upon watching it again, if I had seen it in its entirety, it had been so long that I'd forgotten everything about it. So as far as I'm concerned, I would reset the counter and say this would be the first time I've actually seen it all the way through.
Yeah, well, I knew all too well what I was in for.
Yeah,
I had never seen this movie because one, I'm not a Conan fan in the first place, and two, I know how long it is because I've seen friends get old while watching it, and so I'd never seen it before this for the show. And,
he gets out and goes, "Who's president?"
And so, man, lucky for you, you were never friends with that guy who says the coolest thing is at the very, very end. So you just have to make it to the end to see the coolest thing, because that happened to me once.
Oh my God, so awful. So I was kind of surprised because don't get me wrong, I don't like this movie. I think it's too long. I think it's ridiculous. There are way too many sex scenes in this movie. But was pornography just not readily available during that time? No, it wasn't.
It's pre VHS, man. Not very many people had VHS at all.
You had to go.
There was
to go
so
to the
much.
store
There was so much of that. It was just like, geez, this is like the fourth scene like this in this movie.
And I'll say this: look, Adam's not the best lover in the world. Ask around. But this cat has.
I will ask around.
You should. You'll get a lot of. Oh, boy. But here's the thing, man. Can Arnold have any less rhythm or just sexiness at all? There's just nothing there. I don't yeah, he's a physical specimen to behold. There's no doubt about that. But from the sex scenes to the throwing around the sword and stuff, he can lift a lot of weights, but he's not a real physical guy.
I reel them in with my body, and then they're mine.
We lock eyes together.
And the drawback is he's so big, particularly at the time he made this movie, that there's no way they're getting a stunt double either. So he had to do so much of his own work.
And that's the Shaquille O'Neal effect right there.
Exactly, man. I thought I was watching Steel again.
Oh, nothing's as good as Steel.
But it did have one of my favorite naughty man-woman scenes of all time, where as soon as he finishes, he throws the woman in a fire.
Go to the fireplace now. So terrible. And the great thing is, though, is that, like, I even saw it when he did it. He overthrows the fire even. So she's, like, in it but not in it and can still go. I'm like, she's not dead. She, like, kind of, barrel rolled through that.
No, I'm fine.
Oh, I can get him again.
I also wonder why it took the slave master so long to turn Conan into a gladiator, because I felt like he pushed that wheel a good 15 or 20 rotations more than he needed to. Like, they could have taken him straight to being a gladiator after one rotation on the wheel as a big guy. But doesn't it feel like we watched him push that wheel as a big guy like a few more times than we needed to?
I think I'm still watching it.
It feels like they had to, like, just... I think half of this movie is like a tribute to Arnold's hair, and it's just like look at this, look at these glorious locks laying down on his face. Isn't he a gorgeous man? Isn't he gorgeous? And they just it's bad. Now
I will say it is shocking how young he looks in this movie.
Yeah,
he was younger than he is now.
He's looking.
Explain.
35 years younger, I think. Huh, yeah. But I'm going to tell you. Speaking relatively compared to what lies ahead in this movie, the gladiator sequence I enjoyed. I like watching him fight with other crazy looking people with these crazy weapons and face masks and stuff. I like that kind of stuff.
There could have been more.
James Earl Jones shooting snakes at people.
Somebody should make a whole movie that's just about a gladiator. I bet that thing would win an Oscar.
Yes.
Forget it. It won't work.
Here's the thing. So let's top on that real quick here. This movie is just like a bad version of a lot of other movies. This is just a poor, terrible version of Ben-Hur for the most part, right? But with less Jesus and more killings and sex.
This movie needs more Jesus.
Honestly, Jesus. I don't think Jesus could have saved this movie. But it's not. It's just like it's a rehash, man. It's a rehash of all the stuff here now. This was written and directed by John Milius. Now, John Milius is part of the kind of crew from the 70s, kind of the new wave of American cinema. Came along with like American Zoetrope and things of that nature as contemporaries, like your Francis Ford Coppola's, your Martin Scorsese's, your George Lucas's, and things of that nature.
Well, he is a Francis Ford Coppola guy, isn't he? Isn't that where he came from?
Yeah, absolutely. And so he's amongst this group. Now, of all of those cats who are like the more like, liberal hippie kids, Milius was like Mr. Military, right? He was Mr. Military. He's the Republican of the group who's into guns and drinking. And
that would explain why he worked with Oliver Stone to a degree. I mean, the military part.
Precisely. And then he teams up with Oliver Stone, who for all the drinking that Milius did, Stone did all the coke that he possibly could. And he wrote, like, Stone originally wrote the script for this that was actually way more ambitious than this movie was. They said,
his first draft had Conan in a wheelchair for half the movie.
So it was, and it supposedly would have cost what would equal today $170 million, something ridiculous, right? And so they pared that back and gave it all to Milius and do Milius stuff. Now, Milius, for those that don't know, I guess the biggest thing that most people would probably recognize of his was Red Dawn.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, and I'll say it too. Like Conan the Barbarian, Red Dawn, highly overrated. It's
agreed.
It's not a very good movie.
Patrick Swayze, man, I'm crazy about Swayze, so I do like that aspect.
Look, I'll watch Ghost. Yes, you heard it. I'll watch Ghost before I watch the Red Dawn. But
the cooler speech in Roadhouse. Come on,
Roadhouse that's way better. Roadhouse. I mean, come on.
Hey,
there's a lot of Swayze to pick from that's better.
I'll quote what my mother said when Patrick Swayze died. She said, "I know we went to heaven because if he ain't there, it ain't heaven."
Aw.
That's great.
Yeah.
But this is what Milius does. And this I mean, as much as I kind of have respect for the historic factor of the guy, he's up his own keister like ain't nobody else, right? If you ever listen to him talk about stuff, but it comes off in droves in this movie. I think that's my main point, is that this script is very self-important, very pat yourself on the back. The directing is very, look at all of these wild vistas and stuff and all this cool cinematography and everything that you can do, but there's no real basic story about it. You know, I mean, they got the great Ron Cobb to do the production design on this. Ron Cobb, who had just come off of Alien and everything and done fantastic work. And he comes into this, and it's mediocre at best.
Well, man, I do want to talk about when they decide to take Conan to Mongolia to teach him kung fu, because there's an absurd joy for me in watching the way they teach him kung fu, which is basically you hold a sword straight in front of you while I kick another guy in the nuts. Like, that's how you learn kung fu in this movie.
That's how I learned.
You just hold this sword, don't move. I'm going to go over here and kick this guy in the nads. I'll be back in a minute, and you'll get your black belt.
Now flex really hard. There you go. Good job. Veininess, more, perfect.
Keep your brow furrowed and look down.
Now I want you to hold this sword in front of your face and go cross-eyed.
Then we have the real good news, bad news situation where the good news is, Conan, you're not a slave anymore. You're set free. The bad news is you're in the middle of the Gobi Desert, so good luck. What's the idea of setting your slave free in the middle of the Gobi Desert like that?
I do like the idea, though, that the dogs that are chasing after him were not sent after him, that they just, like, showed up and started running after him. And so he's like, oh, my God, I can't tell you, the dogs, the wild dogs are chasing me. And so, you know, like, for, like, miles and miles, like, 2 days, the dogs are chasing him. And he finally makes it to that weird outcropping of rocks.
It falls into a tomb in the middle of what is clearly supposed to be the Hyborian Ages equivalent of Mongolia. Falls into a tomb to what appears to be a European ruler with medieval armor and sword.
So supposedly in the script and everything, that was supposed to be like the lost city of Atlantis. I kid you not.
Well, in Robert Howard's stories, I mean, it's very heavily implied that when Atlantis sank, the Sumerians moved to Ireland. So the Sumerians are Atlanteans.
So, but now that looks cool. Now, this is the part of the movie where I just go, I think this is where our friends from the 80s really have a great time, right? Because all of, like, this all leads into, like, what made the 80s good for, I'm going to call them just pretty much metalheads, right? Because this is 1982. They love themselves some Conan. They love some Evil Dead. And this looks like the cover of an Iron Maiden album. It all looks, it's just so metal that they love it. And, like, I think that's where a lot of this love comes from, is that, you know, when you're 11, 12 years old in 1982, this is your jam. You see a couple of chowder buckets in there. They got all this metal stuff going on, and Conan's looking, you know, like a BA. That's all.
They took 7 pages out of heavy metal and turned it into 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I do have to say that one of the things that I do like about this movie, I think that the soundtrack, the score to this movie is great.
Now, here's
it has to be.
Weird
it's playing
thing.
nonstop.
I think the music is great, but it's really paired in a way that it's not as effective as it should be. Like if you just listen to the music, it sounds so much better than when you hear it while you're watching the movie.
Well, you know what it sounds like? It seems like they made the movie to fit the music. You know what I mean? Like, oh, wow, that's a big crescendo. Well, we don't have a lot to do here, but we can try to make this work.
I wish the guy put a few fast-paced songs in the soundtrack to speed this bad boy up.
Yeah, I started watching it last night because I downloaded it on the iPad there, rented that and everything, and I was like, okay, here we go. I'm going to watch this, and, it was only like 9 o'clock, right? So it wasn't late or anything. But, man, when that score just kind of keeps going, because I think there's, like, in this, almost 2.5-hour movie, there's maybe 30, maybe 45 minutes tops of dialogue. The rest of it is silent. And there's just long stretches where nothing is said and few things are going on. And I just started nodding off, and I'm like, well, I'm going to have to finish this tomorrow.
Yep.
You didn't, and then you finished the movie at what, like 7 o'clock this morning?
No, I was like, oh, well, I'll just, I got an 8-hour ride back from Florida. I'll watch it. Nope. I was just like, I'll just fall off. So I laid in my bed and, watched it just before we started this thing. And I was still.
But if you started watching at 9 o'clock last night, you probably finished it at 7 a.m. because that's how long it takes to watch the whole movie.
Yeah, this is the it takes me an hour to cook minute rice movie where it's just like, well, surely I can get through this in no time flat. No, you'd be wrong. It stretches on forever. This should have been called The Never-Ending Story.
Okay, so Shawn, I've got an idea for you. If you're ever in front of a firing squad and they say any last requests, say, please show me 1982's Conan, because it'll make you feel like you're living a full life before they pull that trigger.
I've had conversations with people that feels the same way.
Oh, man.
I feel like at the end of this, they're going to shoot me.
Now, he starts to pick up, like, friends real quickly here. It's like they give us some people say the first act is where you establish the supporting cast. Not this movie.
No, Mako shows up at what? The beginning of the
fifth act or sixth act.
Right, it's like the second act.
Yeah. But the first one he meets is Subutai. I don't know. Do you guys like Subutai? Do you think much about Subutai? Does he have any character that you can even say, like, who Subutai is?
I'm not even sure who that is.
He's got a great laugh.
Hey, all I know is, there was an actual Mongolian general named Subutai, so I always remember his name because of that. One of Genghis Khan's main generals was Subutai.
Okie doke.
Is that how you say that, Genghis?
That's how I say it. Once again, man, there's actually a lot of people that say Genghis.
Okay.
He only brings it up because we're going to get emails on account of it.
On that one, I'll stand my ground on Genghis Khan.
I love this. I love this Darnold Schwarzenegger. Such a great actor.
It's Schwarzenegger.
Oh, man. But Subutai here, I guess he's the wolves that were chasing Conan were supposed to go eat him or something.
Yames Ural Yomes. Because sometimes J's are pronounced like what? I'm sorry, I had to do it. So stupid. I haven't had enough sleep.
He catches up with the thief, right? And where is he? Like, he's outside chained up because they're trying to
feed him to wolves.
Killed by wolves?
Yeah, they're feeding him to the dogs. So I assume the dogs that were supposed to eat him went off after Conan.
Oh, I see.
Just picture yourself as a dog. Do you want to eat Subutai or do you want that big beefcake running around?
Oh, man, don't make me choose.
More meat on them bones. Yes, sir.
I mean, I like a thin Asian guy as much as anybody else, but we got Schwarzenegger.
Oh, wow. Is that guy even Asian? I don't think that dude's Asian. He looks like he's Italian, and they just gave him that wiry mustache.
Subutai his name is Gary Lopez, if that tells you anything.
Well, the thing was filmed in
no,
Spain.
That's not
the movie was filmed in Spain, so he might be a Spanish actor.
He could be Spanish. It probably is, because that's still during the time where they're like, what? We gotta You know, when you watch movies about like gangs and stuff, it's like, well, we got a couple of white guys in there, we got a couple of Asian dudes. Like that's the way gangs work, right?
We really need a good Asian actor for this picture. I know who, Mickey Rooney.
Perfect.
Exactly.
Sign him up.
And I guess for whatever reason he decides, you know what, I'm just going to become best friends with this stranger chained up on a rock and go to some creepy city to look for Thulsa Doom.
You need to eat and I need to eat, so I don't do eat together.
Oh man, yeah. What could go wrong there?
He just needed to find the one guy that could, do the roasted chicken out there. That's all he really needed him for. And they had two more sitting on the spit when they were already, eating and stuff. So I'm like, well, Arnold's eating 3/4 of that. We know that.
Absolutely, he needs the protein.
I need a bracelet that says, "What would Conan do?" And I'm going to look down at it and break some guy out of jail and go to lunch with him.
What do you want to go to McAllister's or something? What are you in the mood for?
One of the weird things about this movie too is that when it's the two of them together, because they're trying to show you that he's rising up through the like he's getting more and more like on the way, where he doesn't have horses at first. It was a lot of them just like running around.
Man, they gallop at full speed through the desert. I love that. I'd love to go to a land where that's how people transported themselves.
And it looks so weird. It's just so weird. I'm like, these guys need horses so bad. And at some point, because Arnold's so big in this movie, he's like, "Oh, I've got shin splints."
Now, does anybody buy that Arnold is 6'2"? Everywhere I say it says he's 6'2". That feels tall to me.
Absolutely not. He is 6 foot tall, maybe. I think he's just under 6 foot.
That's what I'm saying. I'm looking at this. I'm just like, I'm a tall dude. I'm looking. I'm like, no, there's no way he's that tall.
He is not 6'2". No way.
Yeah, I was about to say 6 if he's lucky. But
next time I see him, I'll have to bring out the
6'3".
tape measure.
There's no way he's an inch shorter than me. There is no way.
Well, I'm 6'1", and he was taller than me when I stood next to one of his pictures.
Bruce is 6'1". That's great.
When I see him on TV, he looks real big.
He's taller than Tom Cruise, so he's got to be over 6'2".
Well,
taller than Sylvester Stallone, he must be mammoth.
Listen. You do not start messing around with Tom Cruise. You will get sued.
Oh, man. He's got beautiful teeth, especially the one in the middle. So Valeria shows up.
He fixed that, buddy. That is fixed.
The thing is, rather than move his tooth, it was easier to move his face. But they meet Valeria, the female bandit. And you wouldn't know that her name is Valeria from the movie, but if you watch the credits, that's apparently what her name is, Valeria, who is a character from some of Howard's stories.
I guarantee you that they have a couple of lines of dialogue where he's speaking to her, and they just had to cut it out because it was unintelligible, or Valeria.
It sounds like a terrible disease you catch in sub-Saharan Africa.
Well, the funny part is like all the voiceover that's done in it initially was going to be Conan's actual thing. No, that's true. It's absolutely true. But they were like,
worst decision in Hollywood history.
They're like, we cannot sell him doing this voiceover. We've got let's get a wizard gentleman to that'll be the ticket. He's with him for 5 minutes.
Let's get Mako in here.
Oh, man. I love that, man. But they go to the Snake Tower. This is something I remember being kind of cooler than it was. I remember that giant snake not looking like it was made from papier-mâché.
Are you like a Jewish woman from Florida in 1945? Papier-mâché.
Did the snake disappoint you guys as much as it did me? I mean, how many ways are there to do a bad giant snake?
Here's the biggest problem, right? Is Homeboy shoots his arrows at him, and you can manipulate sound, guys. It sounded like an arrow hitting rubber. Just thump, thump. It's like, dude, put a better sound effect in there, man. There's nothing stopping you from editing the crappy sound out and sweeten it up with something good.
Think how much fun it would have been if they'd brought in Harryhausen and had a good stop-motion snake there, like something from Clash of the Titans, Kraken style. How much more fun that would have been.
It would have been amazing, but no, like this is the time when that kind of stuff is looked down upon. You can't. What? Ooh, gross. Make it good. Don't make it, classic.
The problem is Dino just happened to have 2 giant snakes in his parlor, so he loaned one out to the production.
Look, here's the thing. If you didn't know this was done by De Laurentiis, you would know it just by watching it. You didn't even have to see his name. It reeks of his work.
I like to call him the Italian Golem.
Sure.
Hey, that's not wrong. I'd say that's pretty spot on right there.
If Canon Films were European, it would be Dino De Laurentiis.
100%. Yeah,
and then
the snake.
Then
I did like him cutting off the head. That was cool. That looked decent. That little bit. But the rest, it's spotty. It's just like, oh, this looks cool. Oh, that looks terrible. Oh, that's okay. Oh, terrible.
The thing is, for a guy like me who saw this in my youth, the parts that I remember being awesome were only awesome in comparison to what was around them. It's like when you have a bologna sandwich that's on, 2 pieces of refurbished tire rubber, you think the bologna was really good because the rubber was so bad. And that's kind of what we have here.
Yeah, no, not wrong.
But I do kind of like the way that we get to see this montage of them being rich in the Hyborian age, which apparently being really wealthy causes you to fall asleep in your soup.
Yeah, that was just bizarre. I think they felt like that was the height of comedy. Hey,
they said we have to find a way to keep Arnold from talking in this scene. I've got it. Put his face in the soup.
Doesn't he bubble the soup up at one point too?
I think he falls over in the floor.
Well, no, she pushed. I think like they try to get him and he falls on the floor. But I think like he's down in the soup for at least a couple minutes. Well, it seems that way at least. It's probably like 5 seconds, but it seems like it's an hour and a half. But he kind of bubbles up the soup at one point, which I thought was, again, funny as all get out.
What kind of soup was that? It kind of looked like soapy dishwater.
It looked like sawmill gravy mixed with oatmeal.
and then
I think it looked like pudding that hadn't set.
Yeah.
ooh, that's bad.
Gray flavored.
Then they get called into King Thorodoric of York, or whatever his name was, the weird out of place king for what is, clearly more of like a Near Eastern, like this is supposed to be in, I don't know, Turkey, Persia, somewhere like that. And then we get this like Norse king or Germanic king out of nowhere that wants his daughter rescued. And let's be honest, they should have gotten this quest to rescue the daughter like 2 hours and 20 minutes before they did.
Absolutely. It's Osric.
Yeah, King Ostrich, like I said.
This whole movie, like even by the time that you get to the end, feels just like what should have just been Act 1.
Yeah.
It does.
I got you, man. I agree with that wholeheartedly, but they love their Act 1.
So much so we're going to stretch it out for 2 hours and 10 minutes.
And I also love it because Conan just sets out by himself and what's the guy's name? Mako, the crazy bald wizard guy that like you really should have met earlier in the movie to have him be relevant.
Yeah, and he shows up in the middle, and then do we ever see him again after that? After he like laughs, like Conan's like,
oh yeah, he
comes back
he's all over the last act.
He comes back with the oversized helmet on. That's all I remember is it looks like he has a toilet seat on his head.
Oh, okay, there you go.
And he hilariously can't get up after he falls over.
And I love it too that Conan sets off on this quest in like this most it's like Saracen armor or something. It's this ridiculous mail with the pointy helmet and everything, and then he meets the bald guy and actually goes to fight, and he changes clothes into the leather rawhide. Because they have him really dressed up on that horse, and I'm thinking Arnold's got to be a pretty heavy burden for a horse on his own. Then you throw all that steel mail on top of him. That's got to add another 100 pounds to his weight.
Listen, we trip horses with fishing wire in this country. Don't nobody care about that.
But man, I do like it when he gets the camel, because there are a few things in life that are as much fun to watch as Arnold Schwarzenegger trying very hard to ride a camel.
That cat looked like genuine scared. He was, oh boy, it was great.
That's why I prefer
my favorite scene is when he punches that camel in the face, though.
Oh.
He goes full Mongo on him.
He did. He went like camel Mongo. Just. I mean, that's when the funny part is like that is truly when the town kind of turned on him, is because they seemed to be okay with him. Then when he did that, everyone was ticked. Oh, wait a minute.
Never punch a camel.
He just punched out that camel. That can't stand.
And then he gets, he it's like straight out of the Three Stooges, man. Like an episode of the Three Stooges when the creepy priest is kind of hitting on Arnold and he says, let's go talk behind the bushes. Then you hear poof, poof, poof. And then he walks out in this ridiculously fitting priest's robe. Like I could see Larry Moe and Curly coming out from behind the bush wearing a priest's robe and trying to fit in. Well, that's what we have here with Arnold.
This is true.
Combing their hair with their hands.
Yeah.
Now if we believe
I am a priest, brother.
If we believe that that Arnold is 6'2", this guy clocks in at a good 6'7", wearing a nice like super flowy thing just on account of Arnold can fit in it.
And I wish I could do a better impression of the old guy from the Family Guy, because that's what this guy's like. Oh, you sure look muscly there.
Let's get on over outside of the thing, and we'll just try this little costume on. Why don't you take that robe off? It's looking a little
Don't be ashamed of them muscles.
They're rippling.
Sure is nice.
But he goes never go behind the bushes with the priest from the Temple of Set, guys. I'm just telling you that now.
My mom always told me that.
Yeah. But anyway, so he comes out in his priest garb and quickly sticks out like we used to call a floater in a punch bowl.
That's floater in a punch bowl is what I described this movie. Boom.
So he gets nailed to the cross. Like, you know what?
Put it on the poster.
No metaphor is too heavy-handed for Milius here.
No, it is not. And here's the funny part: they don't even do that. They don't even do it the right way. It's like if you're gonna do a crucifixion, do it right. You're supposed to break their legs so they die quicker. They just leave them up there. Like,
and I love it when the puppet vulture bites his neck and then he bites the vulture back, and then he throws throws the vulture to the ground. And all I'm thinking is he had to be pretty hungry by then. There's no way he doesn't want to eat that vulture.
The two things that I thought that I was like, I bet you Bruce is going to like this. One is James Earl Jones using snakes as arrows. Yeah. I know you love that. And I know you love him biting the vulture in the neck. I know you love it.
Man, you don't know how badly I wish I could just pick up a snake and shoot people. If you had snake arrows, you could rule the world, because nobody wants to fight a snake arrow.
No matter how much they tell you they do.
Bow down before my snake archery. The only thing better would be like ninja stars made out of spiders.
Ooh. Okay. Now, can we talk real quick about James Earl Jones's hair?
I've been dying to.
Because it may be the worst thing ever. Now, here's what I want you to imagine when you look at James Earl Jones in this role. He has the same haircut that Rosario Dawson did in Death Proof, but he's a 65-year-old man in this flick. It's just the most bizarre, weird thing. And they were just like, yeah, no, this looks good. And why does the other guy? Why does one of his henchmen looks like Michael McKean?
Yes, he does, man. More muscular Michael McKean.
I'm waiting for that to happen too. I'm just waiting for him to break out into some song or something, boy.
Spinal Tap.
I want it to happen.
And you know this was Spinal Tap's favorite movie. There's no way it wasn't.
See, again, same era, right around the same time here. I'm telling you, it's all connected. This is some conspiracy level stuff right here, boys.
But it's like he took the Prince Valiant haircut to a whole new level, James Earl Jones did. And there's a part of me that just hopes that wasn't a wig. Like for a solid year, that's what Mr. Jones looked like.
Hey, I don't know if you were there or not. This is an inside for me and Shawn. Shawn, you remember in the Charlotte comedy scene Spencer, Asian dude?
Oh yeah.
That was one of my favorite jokes that during a roast was I said that Spencer walks into a barber and just goes, "I'll have the Prince Valiant, please." Who does that? Because that dude, it's like he had that haircut. Like, so that exists in the real world. I've seen it. It's as bizarre as it is.
The weirdest part is that he was involved in sports medicine, two things that should never go together, you know?
Prince Valiant haircut and sports medicine. I love it.
I like cats, man.
Seriously.
And man, Valeria dies. They have this whole thing where they get Conan off the cross and then a bunch of ghosts try to eat him or something. And then Valeria, the blonde lady, goes out and she manages to karate fight the ghosts while she lies on Conan's almost dead body or whatever. But then Valeria ends up getting shot with the snake arrow.
But that's when it gets all metal, man. When they're going through, she's fighting the ghost demons and stuff. And man, it's so metal in there. But honestly, that didn't look half bad. As horrible.
No, it looked cool. It's a kind of special effect that you just don't see at all anymore.
Yeah,
it would have been better if Subutai and the bald wizard guy had pulled out some proton packs.
But they pulled it off a lot better than I would, because I was just like, oh, this is gonna turn bad real quick, and it looked pretty good for what it was. I was kind of shocked at that. It was good. I won't say seamless, but it was a lot more so than I thought.
Now, you guys may not be bothered by this on the level that I am, and it bothers me that I'm bothered by this, but I really don't like mixed mythologies without at least some acknowledgement that the writer understands they're mixing mythologies, okay? Because it starts when Conan is talking about Crom, and then he talks about if he doesn't satisfy Crom, he'll never get to go to Valhalla. So I'm all upset they're mixing this Norse mythology with this Crom sort of earth-based, more like a Celtic mythology. It's getting me upset from there.
I don't think anyone should be worshiping James Cromwell. You're correct.
And then when Valeria dies, she comes back as a Valkyrie. So they're really trying to make Conan a Viking. If that's what they want to do, why not make a Viking movie,
Or make up your own mythology.
Nothing wrong with that either.
It's all a pretend fake world anyway.
But it's something that Robert Howard never would have done. That's something that the filmmakers decided to do to add that sort of Norse mythology into Conan.
Sounds cool. Shut up.
Yeah.
But we get the big battle at the end where it's, 3 guys versus an army, which turns out to be an army of like 5 guys. So it's not that impressive. And they set up this really elaborate, like Home Alone style defense of their fort. And
I love that so much. It's so funny. I'm looking for Kevin.
but the sad thing is the execution is basically Conan just stands between 2 rocks and kills them one at a time, and we only get to see one trap utilized. It's so no payoff to all this like exciting buildup of their Home Alone contraptions, and then all we see is Conan taking his sword and jumping out from behind a rock and hitting people one at a time as they ride by, this massive horde of 5 people attacking the 3 of them.
And it is funny that the guy with the giant Gallagher mallet, 25 years later, still using the big mallet. Doesn't change weapon. He's not, he's older, so you think he's going to have a harder time with that giant mallet, but no, he doesn't. He doesn't have arthritis in his wrists and his fingers from holding that thing for 25 years.
Man likes what he likes.
He's still using the big mallet.
Likes what he likes. He good.
No innovations in war weaponry where Thulsa Doom is concerned, I guess. And he's the only one that gets one of the elaborate traps. And to be honest, it's not all that elaborate.
I was bored at this point.
Spring-loaded what looks like saber tooth?
Yeah, spring-loaded pointy stick.
Terrible.
Daffy Duck himself couldn't have done better.
But when you're sitting through as much as you have to sit through in this movie, shouldn't that final fight be a little more like exciting or awesome? Or even though there's no black powder around, give me an explosion. Give me something, man. Have lightning strike a rock, for heaven's sake. This is a really boring final confrontation, if you ask me.
They blew all their bread on the ghost fight.
Did you see the name at the beginning of the movie? Did you see the name at the beginning of the movie? Dino De Laurentiis?
Yeah.
He
gave them about $12 in coupons to McDonald's to make that final battle. So,
yeah. But a little bit of a disappointing climax to this movie. But what my friend told me, you have to sit through this. You can't quit during the boring parts because the very best part is at the very end. And that very best part is simply Arnold Schwarzenegger made to look a little older sitting on a throne while words go by.
Had some sweet text.
And man, I thought, couldn't you have just fast forwarded to this point and let me see it? Because I will be honest, I do think that's a pretty butt-kicking scene there. I love that little scene and the text that goes over it and knowing the history of the character like I do. I think it's cool, but boy, boy, there was a lot to sit through, and it was kind of didn't go with the rest of the movie.
I waited well over 2 hours.
Was your friend screwing with you, or did he actually think it was the best, like the best ending ever?
He thought it was the coolest part of the movie, which is not wrong, but that still doesn't mean it's worth sitting through. It's like saying that the chewy thing in the center of the urinal is the best thing to eat in the men's room at a truck stop. It might be true, but you probably just shouldn't mess with it at all.
I'm not even touching that one. But, you know, it looked cool, and then they're like, by the way, end of Act 1, and that's a story that we'll save for another time. Ooh.
And as of like, I don't know, within the past year, they were still talking about that King Conan movie being made.
Oh, God, just stop it all. Just stop it all.
Nobody wants to see that. Why would they possibly spend money on that? No one wants to see a 75-year-old Arnold Schwarzenegger with his shirt off. Nobody wants that.
No, not at all.
I'll play the dad this time. It'll be good. Terrible. But then the dad kills the son and takes over the role. You know, that's how Arnold would have it happen.
Yeah.
It's like, but this one, he gets to be the king again because the younger generation, no, we're going to kill the younger generation off because I'm special. All right. Now, before we get to the you know, this has gone on as long as Conan the Barbarian has felt.
It feels that way.
We've got to get to our we got to get to the most special part of this show. Don't know how he's going to do it, but we got to find out how this movie relates to our good friend Sylvester Stallone.
Thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement.
Oh.
Dino De Laurentiis died in 2010 at the age of 91. But before he passed on, he had produced 174 movies, of which he spent over almost $1 million on every single one of those movies combined. His first was in 1941, which, if you're not paying attention, is 1 year before America got involved in World War II. He was one of the executive producers on Conan the Barbarian, and he was a first-generation immigrant from Italy, so he spoke English, broken English, and is quoted to have said to Arnold Schwarzenegger after the success of Conan the Barbarian, "I make you a star." There's also a story about him that goes like this. In the middle of her audition for King Kong in 1976, he turned to his son and described Meryl Streep as troppo bruta per King Kong, too ugly for King Kong. And he assumed that she couldn't understand him if he spoke in Italian. She then replied in perfect Italian that she was very sorry to have disappointed him and left. Luckily for Dino, that unknown actress didn't go on to do much, so he didn't regret saying that almost every day for the rest of his life. Dino would also produce movies like Bruce Leslie's favorite Flash Gordon, and while we've never spoken about King Kong Lives, I'm sure is not a Bruce Leslie favorite.
I watched it on Easter Sunday this year, no lie.
King Kong Lives?
Yeah, with Linda Hamilton.
Wow. And what do you think?
Not too good, but man, you got to get your Lady King Kong where you can.
I can tell you're eating right now, Leslie.
We're talking about I don't eat during this segment.
And he also produced Army of Darkness. He also produced all of the Hannibal Lecter movies that weren't Silence of the Lambs, as well as Halloween 2 and 3. Now, do you see where this is going? He's responsible for a lot of terrible sequels no one ever asked for. And in 1995, he made another movie no one wanted called Assassin, starring Antonio Banderas and a guy interested in making an 8th Rocky movie, Sylvester Stallone. We've spoken about Assassins before on HMP because when you've been telling the same joke for almost 3 years, you're going to run out of fresh holes to mine. Yet somehow we managed to keep it fresh on the HMP compound. So let's nutshell this man. He made some good movies, a lot of bad movies, and made a whole lot of money being a pretty terrible person. But you know who isn't terrible? Adam Portrais. He's only half terrible. And today is his birthday, so happy birthday, Adam.
Thank you.
Now, Thulsa and Osric, let's review this movie and watch something that doesn't feel like it's 17 hours long.
You're messing up the word fresh is one of my new favorite things today. Fresh. It's like there's a great MST3K short where it's called "Why Study the Industrial Arts." Take a look at that on YouTube. the way he says freshman in there is the way you said fresh right there. It's fantastic. I love it so much. All right. Here on the, what's this called again? Hero Movie Podcast. We have our own patented Robin rating system. If you'd like to know what that is, head on down to facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast, and it's right there at the top of the page, how it all breaks down. And while you're there, why don't you give us a like at the same time? Bruce, where does Conan the Barbarian, the original 1982 production, fall on the H&P Robin rating system for you, sir?
Well, there was a time when I would frequently find myself inexplicably hungover on Sundays.
Huh?
I don't know how that happened. I didn't remember doing anything the night before, so I don't know why I had a hangover. But it would happen on Sundays. And one of my favorite things to do was to turn golf on the television and lie on the couch. And the reason is I don't like golf. I don't like golf at all. So it was the perfect thing to have on television to not interfere with my napping. And also, there's something about, when you first start watching golf, you kind of enjoy how nice and green the grass is. You think, oh, that guy has a name that I sort of recognize, and his shirt, well, that's a pretty darn nice collared shirt that man's wearing. And very quickly, it turns into the most boring thing on earth, and you find yourself snoozing for the 4.5 hours that the golf tournament is on Sunday afternoon. That's what this movie is like. It's like watching golf for me. I kind of like the beginning where the village gets sacked. I have a little bit of fun with the gladiator fights, but that all adds up to like 7 minutes of this 4.5 hour movie. And quickly, man, this is a great movie to fall asleep to. And I don't mean that in a condescending way. I mean, it's honestly like you have a little bit of fun, then you're not missing anything, and you might wake up in time to see old man Conan sitting on the throne. So I'm not going to give it.
Throne.
I'm not going to give it the absolute bottom, Jason Todd, but I'm going to give it Stephanie Brown because that feels like the most appropriate rating for a movie that's good for sleeping through.
Okay. Shawn, what do you got?
Well, you see, to me, this movie is a lot like watching golf. Because there's a tiger in it.
Yes.
Boom.
So, I can't stand this movie. I actually, that's not true. I like this movie because it's bad, I guess is the right way to put it. I never want to watch it again, but man, it sure is fun to laugh at some of the stuff that happens in this movie. There's a lot of moments where Arnold is just completely, I guess it's called overacting. I don't even know what to call it, where he's just making these weird facial expressions and not saying anything because they don't want him to talk because he's unintelligible. I'm going to give it a Stephanie Brown as well. It's fun. Like it's a fun, bad movie, but it's just so long. It feels like I wasted my entire afternoon watching this movie.
Well, this movie to me is a lot like watching Frolf. Frisbee golf.
Keep going.
Just not as good. Neither one is very good, but I mean, if you put them together, I guess it's a little bit more enjoyable. No, look, I understand that this is a movie that a lot of people like. I just certainly can't figure out why that is, and I think it's also has to do with the time and place with which and when you watch this, right? There are movies that I know that look. I like Flight of the Navigator. That's a piece of crap, but I'm aware of it. I can still go, hey, look, I like this dumb, stupid movie. And
I'm afraid to watch that movie now because I loved it as a kid.
Yeah, it's not good. It makes you just go, wow, that was terrible. And, some movies hold up, some movies don't. This is one that, like, I get it. You have a bias because it reminds you of a time gone by. And that was not a time for me. Like I said, this movie is as old as I am. It's not something that I watched. And it's not something I'll go back and continue to watch because it's just, to me, it's boring. It's a good looking movie. I think it's directed decent for what it is. It's wildly underwritten. It is the first act of a movie done in 2 full hours. If you took, honest to goodness, if you took 45 minutes out of this and maybe added another action scene, it might be decent. I might have enjoyed it a bit more, but it's long, it's overwrought. You got such an amazing actor like James Earl Jones, and now I know that he was a last-minute addition to this thing, but you don't use him. You throw away, a fantastic actor in such a crummy little role. It's a shame.
They couldn't risk damage to the wig.
I guess not. He has still the same haircut 20 years later, whatever it is. It's awful. As much as I'd kind of like to err on the side of Stephanie Brown and stuff, I gotta go Jason Todd. I found it's just boring. I almost fell asleep dozens of times. The score is cool, but the score is also just,
it's for the wrong movie.
Yeah, it's in there, but nothing important is going on while it's there. They're running across landscapes again, and sure, Milius is putting it on, like a truck and tracking along with them and stuff, and trying to make it as interesting as it can be. But the fact of the matter is, it's not interesting. Arnold just doesn't have it. He's a specimen of a man, but he's not. Look, the Terminator movies are the best. You want to know why they're the best? Because he's an emotionless robot, and that is right up, Schwarzenegger's acting talents. So it is what it is.
You clearly have not seen Kindergarten Cop.
Oh, that movie stinks too, people. If you think Kindergarten Cop is good, it stinks too.
I like the sequel with Dolph Lundgren that was on Netflix.
Yeah,
Me too. That's pretty great.
So yeah, this is a Jason Todd for me. I know I'm sure the Patreon people did not see it going this way at all, but because I know there's a large group of people out there that do dig this. I ain't one of them. But you know what I do dig? Those people that patreon.com/HMP. Thank you guys so much for your support this month. And if you want to get in, man, patreon.com/HMP. Any level gets you to vote for the movie that we watch every single month. And, of course, like we said, next month with it having 5 weeks and everything, one of you lucky supporters will actually get to pick the film that we watch. I don't know why we do this. Seems like a really, really bad idea, but we're going to do it. And, of course,
I'm really pulling for Zorro to come through.
But you don't have to pick from those movies. You can pick any movie except for, Stallone's Judge Dredd. We won't do that one. There's reasons why. But if you want to do that, we'd really appreciate it. And like I said, there's going to be more prizes every single week for you people. So patreon.com/HMP. Next week, I don't know that we're faring a whole heck of a lot better. So we're starting off May right with a good old-fashioned movie that I think could have been directed by a young Michael Bay, but it would have been better. Superman 4. Huh? Who's excited? Yeah. That's the level of entertainment that we're working with here. It's like, hey, how's it feel? I guess that's what we're doing. We decided? All right, fair enough. So we'll be doing Superman 4 next week. In the meantime, Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet this week, sir?
Well, Chubby Wizard, we're always talking comic books and a little bit of comic book TV there. Heroes and Villains, I just put up an episode all about Peter Porker, the Spectacular Spider-Ham. I know people want to check that out. And as always, Dragon in the Needles. Go to Amazon, go to Audible, go to iTunes. Check out Dragon in the Needles if you haven't done so yet. I promise you it'll hold your attention better than Conan 1982.
I haven't downloaded it yet. Is the Peter Porker episode another 3-hour one or what?
No, it's like 50 minutes.
The bare minimum.
He was a spider that was bitten by a pig.
What more do you not want? Keenan, what do you got?
Find me on Twitter at Hero Movie Shawn.
And, of course, you can always follow this podcast all the places at Hero Movie Pod, Instagram, and Snapchat, and all that kind of jazz. Send me a message, man. I'll send you back something, a message of me giving you a thumbs up or something. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. Now, Nerd Talk Now, we'll be back. I got some new stuff, and it's going to have a different format and everything, but that will drop Monday evening. New kind of format for the show and everything, but we shall be back. Thank you guys so much for listening and supporting the show. We really appreciate that. If you want to email us, heremoviepodcast@gmail.com. We will see you guys next week for Superman 4. For Shawn, Keenan, and Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.